Hello and welcome to The Print. The tides have turned in Britain with the Conservative Party conceding defeat after 14 years of governance, owing to a slew of missteps, miscalculations and scandals. But before we get into that, let's decode the election results. On Friday, the Labour Party led by Keir Starmer, who is tipped to be the next British Prime Minister, secured a landslide win by getting over 400 seats out of a total of 650 in the UK Parliament. So they've comfortably attained a majority. The Conservative Party has had its worst showing, winning as few as 120 seats or so, and seeing its vote share drop 20%. Meanwhile, the Labour Party has only seen a 2% increase in its vote share, but the Keir Starmer-led party stormed to victory in a manner similar to the 1997 election results. The snap elections called by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on 22nd May ended in devastation for his party that has run the country for a large part of the last 200 years, with a number of records, not all positive, broken by the Tories. The Tories are another name for the Conservative Party. Now, the Labour Party, which has been in opposition for 14 years, has won 411 seats out of 650, with about 5 results yet to be declared. The Conservatives have won 120, which I mentioned, and the last time the Tories lost so many seats was in 1906, when the party lost 246 seats under the then leadership of Arthur Balfour. The Conservative Party's historical low in vote share has not reached that amount since it was first formed in 1834. Now, Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister of the UK from the Conservatives, lost her own seat, the first time in nearly a century that a former leader of the country did not get re-elected to the House of Commons. Her mini-budget in September 2022 set off a short financial crisis in the UK that has been blamed as one of the reasons for the Conservatives' tribulations in 2024. If you recall, before Rishi Sunak, there was Liz Truss as the Prime Minister, who ended up holding the shortest term as PM in UK history, lasting just 49 days. At the time, her countdown for her tenure was compared to that of a wilting head of lettuce, and the lettuce won. Rishi Sunak is expected to meet with King Charles III at 10 a.m. British time to hand over his resignation. Now, some other takeaways from the UK elections. Nigel Farage, the far-right leader of the Reform UK Party, was elected to the House of Commons for the first time after 7 previous failed attempts. Farage, who pushed for the British exit from the European Union or Brexit, has promised to come after the Labour Party in the next 5 years. Farage's party won 4 seats in the House of Commons and overturned a Conservative majority of over 25,000 votes to win in Clacton in Essex. The fragmentation of the votes across the UK is a major takeaway from this election. While Labour has won over 400 seats, its overall vote share is lower than even 2017, during which the election it lost under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. A total of 12 million votes were polled in favour of the Corbyn-led Labour Party in 2017, while in 2024, less than 10 million votes are expected to be in favour of the party. And this is an indication that the election is more won against Conservatives than solely pro-Labour. Another takeaway is the Liberal Democrats, the centrist party in the UK, won 71 seats, which is a considerable increase since 2019 and its best showing since its foundation almost 4 decades ago. However, in terms of total number of votes, the party has maintained the same number of poll votes as it did in 2019, about 3.6 million. Let's move over to Scotland and the dramatic shift there. The Scottish National Party, or the SNP, which had led Scotland since 2007, faced a wipeout at the general election. It won only 9 seats, a loss of 37 seats from 2019. The pro-Scottish Independence Party had last won less than 10 seats in the 2010 general election. And the Labour Party in 2019 had only won 1 seat in Scotland, but this time it's managed to pick up 37. This is a very, very difficult night for the SNP, said John Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland and the leader of the SNP. Now, the SNP electoral juggernaut has come to a halt after 14 years of victories both in Westminster and Holyrood, the seat of the Scottish Parliament. Now on to the bigger question: what went wrong for Britain's Conservative Party. The first domino fell when former Prime Minister David Cameron sought the 2016 referendum on Brexit, and this is what experts say. They also say the tenures of the four who succeeded him, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, eroded the party's reputation as one of discipline and smooth organisational machinery. It's important to remember that the Labour Party has only seen a 2% increase in its vote share. It's not so much that Labour has become popular, but rather Conservatives have become very unpopular. It's been a rocky 14 years marked by gross misgovernance, strategic missteps, division in the party and scandals. This combined with a sluggish economy, a disastrous fall in living standards and a breakdown of public services left the populace angry. The Conservative Party's future looks bleak going forward, said Navtej Sarna, former envoy to the UK. Experts also point out how there has been a shift in the long-held perception of the Conservative Party as a party of governance. Harsh Pant, Professor of International Relations at King's India Institute and Vice President of ORF or Observer Research Foundation, told ThePrint, the Conservatives always prided themselves on being a party of discipline and a natural party of governance. This perception took a beating after Brexit, COVID, mishandling and the internal divisions and scandals that followed. Pant also argues that the Labour Party's shift to centrist politics was successful, and it has thereby been able to send out a clear message on policy. Keir Starmer has achieved this centrism in his party by agreeing with the Conservatives on foreign policy and to some extent immigration, while also issuing strong opposition against existing domestic policies on health, housing and living standards. While Rishi Sunak has been credited with improving the UK economy and stabilising national politics after his predecessor Liz Truss failed to last longer than a wilting head of lettuce, he still faced backlash for his Rwanda asylum plan and awkward interactions with ordinary British people. Suella Braverman, his former Home Secretary, also issued blistering attacks leading up to the election, which clearly didn't help Sunak's election campaign. While David Cameron dealt the first miscalculation with Brexit, it was under Theresa May that a civil war erupted in the Conservative Party. Her inability to bring both factions on board for a Brexit plan eventually paved the way for an electoral setback. She called a snap election in 2017, which resulted in a hung parliament and eventually her departure from 10 Downing Street. Enter Boris Johnson, who was able to secure a Brexit plan under the Trump-esque slogan, "Get Brexit Done." But the mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Partygate scandal further unravelled the Conservative Party. Then came Liz Truss's short tenure, marked by a mini-budget in September 2022, which commentators say broke Britain and led to higher mortgage costs for millions in the UK, among other adverse economic ripple effects. Before we wrap up, let's look at the man who could be UK's next PM, Keir Starmer. Starmer is a human rights barrister turned Labour Party leader. He was born in London to a toolmaker father and an NHS nurse mother. He grew up in the town of Oxted in Surrey. You're probably wondering why he earned the title Sir. Well, he was knighted by the late Queen Elizabeth II for his services to law and criminal justice, spent much of his career in the legal profession before stepping into the world of politics, and he was first elected as Labour's Member of Parliament from London in 2015. As a new MP going forth, the staunch anti-Brexiteer assumed the key role of shadow Brexit secretary under then-leader Jeremy Corbyn and supported the latter to fight for what he saw and said was the future of the Labour Party. But Corbyn and Starmer have since diverged on a number of issues, including foreign policy and how the UK should be responding on the global stage to wars like Gaza. Now, Starmer's wife is also an employee of the NHS, and if you recall, his mother was also a nurse in this health system. And it's interesting because the NHS is one of the most underfunded public institutions in the UK, and this was a major election factor this time around, that public institutions were underfunded. Following the debacle of the 2019 general election, Keir Starmer stepped up as party leader, and under his leadership, the Labour Party's manifesto has focused on key public concerns of house building, growing the economy and fixing the NHS. On India, Keir Starmer has made it a manifesto pledge to pursue a new strategic partnership with India, including an FTA or a free trade agreement, which has been dragging its feet for many years now. The other turnaround Starmer worked on was to try and rebuild Labour's connect with the Indian diaspora, which had arguably been alienated under Jeremy Corbyn over perceived anti-India stance on Kashmir. I have a clear message for you all today. This is a changed Labour Party, declared Starmer at the India Global Forum, or the IGF. In the televised election debates ahead of Friday's polls, you may have seen a lot of headlines saying that Starmer was quite dull against a feisty Rishi Sunak. But keep in mind that, like Sunak, Starmer is also from Oxford. He has an Oxford background where he studied law, and for years now he's had the debating prowess on the floor of the parliament as the opposition. But this time he's very likely to be on the other side of the fence. Thanks for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.